Hey, so while creating this video, I realized just how intricate a topic of palmistry is, and it's clear that I can't cover all aspects in just one or two videos. So as a result, there will be several more videos on these subjects, but they will be interesting. Today, I will primarily focus on the physical characteristics of the palm, fingers, and mounts, so chirognomy. To begin, I need to delve into a bit of history. Aristotle, in his Physiognomica, stated that long-lived individuals have one or two lines called arthra, which means joints, extending through the whole palm, while the short-lived individuals have two lines which do not extend all the way. And if you did not know, Aristotle also remarked that a sneeze is a divinatory and supernatural sign, so take that as you wish. He also thought that signs of a short life are absence or scarcity of teeth, excessively long fingers, a dull complexion, and a large number of short lines on the palm, and of long life, rounded shoulders, one or two small lines on the palm, all of your teeth, and big ears. Now, Pliny the Elder did not agree, and Artemidorus included kerioskopoi in his list of false prophets. I will add here that Aristotle did not favor the palmist, though it may seem different. Now, as far as I know, there are no published chiromancies from medieval Byzantium. Today, this is Istanbul, but there are several of them in the Latin of medieval Europe. Of the Latin tracts, two originated in the 12th century, and they are probably the translations from the Arabic. These writings and others similar to these are preserved in a number of manuscripts ranging from the 13th to the 15th century. In the year 1258, Conradus de Austria, a council, attended the lectures which Albertus Magnus was giving in Cologne and had some notes on physiological analysis, mostly on lines, which said that clear lines on the palms are not signs of a long life and short lines are not signs of short life. Instead, it was written that if the lines are not clear, this is a sign that the hand is well nourished and consequently this indicates vital strength. So therefore, short lines are not signs of shortness of life. Now, well-marked lines, even if faint, show that the nature has bestowed great vitality upon their owner. Professor Hardin Craig once devised a provisional classification based on his inspection of such materials in the British Museum and the Bodleian Library, treatises which mention only three principal lines in the palm and say nothing about the mounts or the areas controlled by the planets. Okay, now let's move on to the main topics of this video. Generally speaking, hands can be hard and soft, and even in the simple act of shaking hands, one can form conclusions about someone's character. So if a hand is slippery while grasping it in a handshake, beware, as such persons are considered to be treacherous and deceptive. A softer and fleshier hand is indicative of an easygoing or lazy personality, while a firm hand is the sign of an energetic and reliable nature. A very thin hand indicates restless energy with discontented and fretting personality. Cold hand indicates sensitive and nervous nature. Individual who keeps hands closed while talking is distrustful in nature, and one who gives a firm grasp of the hand is self-confident and generally reliable. Now here we should pay attention to the following. An elastic but firm grip points to mental and physical strength, honorable intentions, and to an intuitive brain. But if a grip is an iron one and the hand is very hard, this indicates extreme energy and strength of will, ruthlessness, and even a strain of cruelty. Next, let's talk about fingers. It was considered that if fingers appear shorter and stumpier in proportion to the rest of the palm, the individual may be possessor of unrefined instincts. In general, shorter fingers are a sign of a more impetuous nature, guided more by the heart than head. Extremely short fingers indicate a elemental and a somewhat primitive type of person. Straight and close fingers denote a stiff and intolerant nature, and this individual pays much attention to formality and convention. Fingers that are wider spread indicate a more open temperament, and a hand with fingers equally spread shows an easygoing nature, generous and willing to take new, unexplored paths. Some irregularity of the fingers, that is not actual crookedness, denotes a versatility and adaptability of temperament with some artistic leanings. Now, if the fingers and the palm are of equal length, the instincts will be more intellectual. And if the fingers are longer and in this way out of proportion to the palm, individual may be overly idealistic and not too practical. However, one may be good in literature, philosophy, or in research of some sort. Now, long fingers indicate a critical and analytical mind, not easily swayed by impulse or moved to do things in a hurry. In love, these individuals can be somewhat inconstant and hard to please. Now, very long fingers are associated with an easy conscience and an acquisitive tendency. The first finger, also known as the index finger or the finger of ambition, if long, the individual is well suited for taking control over others, so good for establishing rules and leading others. If this finger is very long, equal, or little less in the length of the second finger, an impatient and somewhat arrogant intolerance of others' opinions is indicated. The second finger, when straight and well shaped, indicates a serious owner, a little inclined to melancholy, guided by reason. If short, the individual has generally an impulsive and imprudent nature, hard governing most of one's actions, being easily moved to laughter or tears, and usually one is kind and generous. When this finger is of normal length, one has well-balanced judgment and a thoughtful nature. The third finger, when long and straight, indicates a great desire for success and publicity, showing a gambler and a lover of art. If this finger is crooked, no position involving the handling of money should be entrusted to this individual. The average length indicates a love of and critical appreciation of the artistic and aesthetic in life, and a willingness to take chances in business. A short one may not have a zest for speculative enterprises and is overly cautious. The fourth, or little finger, indicates the power of speech, eloquence, and flow of language. If short, one may be shy, too sensitive, but also an excellent writer, as this individual can write better than speak. Also, these people can easily judge and criticize others. Average length indicates adaptability, tactfulness, and an active mind. If the first and the third finger are of equal lengths, this is a good sign of an equally balanced mind. If the fingers are supple in the joints and turn backwards from the palm, this is an indication of quick wit and clever mind, but lacking in continuity, as one has no hold on one thing. If the fingers slightly curve inwards towards the palm, this indicates a slower mind, however also very retentive memory and holding on to the thing one decides to take up on. As for the nails, if you have some ridges, this usually suggests a nervous temperament, but also an alert and sensitive mind. The thumb is the finger that individualizes the man, the Argentini said. A large and well-proportioned thumb indicates a strong-willed and determined person, and the longer the thumb, the more powerful will one has over own actions. The shorter the thumb, more obstinacy and brute force rule the nature of the individual. If the nail phalange or phalanx of the thumb is thick and short, looking like a club, the temper is hot and ungovernable, and the individual does not have control over own emotions. This formation has been called the murderer's thumb. When this phalanx is long and thin, the individual has control over own temper. Willpower is strong, quick, and non-obtrusive. Now the second joint of the thumb, if nicely shaped, almost waist-like, indicates tact, diplomacy, and subtlety in argument. But if this part is full-looking or equal in size to the first phalanx, this indicates having no tact and speaking with brutal frankness. By the proportionate size of the two phalanges, it denotes whether will or reason will have the upper hand in guiding the actions of the individual. And if both phalanges are same in the size, one will employ both these mental faculties equally in determining own way of life. When the thumb looks as if it were tied in close to the hand, this person is sensitive and timid, easily frightened, narrow-minded, careful with money, and not very generous. If the thumb is bending backwards at the first joint, and this is also called double-jointed, this indicates a generous character, adaptable to others, impulsive in actions and decisions, promising things quickly, but often going back on their promises. Individuals who have a stiff-jointed thumb cannot easily adapt to others, being more distant and reserved. When asked to do something, their first answer will be no, but upon thinking, they often give in and usually regret to have done so. It is useless to oppose these people. They have more self-control than other types, and they make more reliable friends and partners, and their friendship, though difficult to obtain, is worth having. A thumb standing far from the hand, almost at right angles to the palm, is not considered to be a good sign for ordinary success, as these individuals are prone to extremes. At the base of the thumb is the mount of Venus, indicating the love tendencies. If well developed, it shows that the individual is swayed by his heart in coming to decisions. Sometimes palmists describe the part of the thumb beneath the mount as the third phalange or phalanx. If the joints of the finger would be numbered from the hand outward, the first joint of the little finger belongs to Sagittarius, the second to Scorpio, the third to Libra. Of the ring finger, the first belongs to Virgo, the second to Leo, and the third to Cancer. Of the middle finger, the first belongs to Pisces, the second to Aquarius, the third to Capricorn, and of the index finger, the first belongs to Gemini, the second to Taurus, and the third to Aries. The phalanges of the fingers, counting from the tips downwards, are said to represent the world of the mind, the material world, and the animal world. The hand itself is also divided into three worlds, the fingers representing the mental domain, the middle part of the hand the material, and the base of the hand the animal domain. A predominance of the upper two domains is a more favorable sign than that of the lower two. In the first case, the business or material side of character will be influenced and held in balance by the idealistic or intellectual side. Now, if the lower parts are more dominant, the sensual side will be restrained by the material, and the character will not be of that, let's say, grace and courtesy, which is the attribute of the first two parts in equal proportion. Now, sometimes hands may be observed that show very little of the middle domain, and in this case, it may be more noticeable that a lower part is more dominant. So the intellect is being applied to aid the lower tastes instead of to check them. There is nothing inherently bad in lower predominance, but it may merely signify a pleasure in the less refined enjoyments and gratifications of life. And now let's talk about the mounts. I have previously mentioned the mount of Venus while talking about the thumb, as it lies at the base of the thumb. A proper development of this mount is essential to a healthy and balanced nature, both physical and mental. When too full, it indicates egotism, inconstancy, apathy, rashness, and passion. A mount of Venus that is flat and inconspicuous denotes stiffness, lethargy, indifference, and weakness. The mount of Moon is located opposite the mount of Venus. In normal development, it endowses a possessor with highly valuable powers of imaginative and creative ability in the arts. In a lesser degree, these qualities are desirable for success in daily life, since lack of imagination can be a drawback in planning a career. An excessive development of this mount can be seen in individuals who live in a world of imagination, as they are not practical in their minds. Also, this was noticed in patients in mental hospitals. A deficiency of this mount denotes an unromantic and unsentimental nature, with less appreciation of the finer things of life and a zest for merely sensual pleasures. The mount of Mars is placed above the mount of Moon opposite the thumb, and there is another mount of Mars located above the mount of Venus. And sometimes palmists ascribe a negative influence to the mount of Mars placed above Moon and a positive influence to the one placed above the mount of Venus. It can be said that the one placed above the Venus exerts a more passive influence, whereas the one above Moon endows its owner with a varying degree of purposive energy according to its development. If the Mars mount above Moon is predominant, this may indicate ambition, activity, boldness, rashness, nervousness, and brilliance. Now, Mars above Venus in dominance indicates firmness, but also ambition, dominance, strength, and self-control, but also obstinacy and aloofness. If both mounts are non-prominent and little, this may denote indecisiveness, sincerity, timidity, non-imaginative nature, prudence, and vindictiveness. Jupiter mount is located at the base of the first or index finger, and when well formed, material success is implied, as is activity, nobleness, pride, and artistic nature. When overdeveloped, it indicates egotism, despotism, and arrogance, and when unformed, it denotes greed, laziness, coarseness, treachery, and cunning personality. Now, the Jupiter mount may tilt towards the Saturn mount, suggesting a tendency towards self-centeredness, which often correlates with a strong work ethic or increased life challenges. However, these efforts are likely to lead to greater prosperity. When examining hands, the mounts may not always be clearly visible. By slightly bending your hand or fingers, you can enhance their visibility, making it easier to identify which mounts are more prominent. Mount of Saturn is located below the second or middle finger. It was thought that the poorly marked or low mount tells of misfortunes in the past and in the future, melancholy, rashness, jealousy, skepticism, and nervousness. Excessive development denotes austerity, egotism, abstinence, pulling away from commitment, and overly cautious nature. Now, if well formed, it indicates balance, discipline, intellectuality, seriousness, but also dishonesty. When the Saturn mount leans towards the Jupiter mount, it can signify an obsession and excessive pride, while a tilt toward the mount of Apollo indicates ambition and a diligent nature, suggesting that the individual will reach wanted goals through perseverance. Mount of Apollo or Mount of Sun is placed below the ring finger. In regular development, it denotes many desirable and helpful attributes like moral strength, intellectuality, faithfulness, sincerity, kindness, generosity, love, artistic nature, musicality, spirituality, and devoutness. Overdevelopment indicates extravagance, lust, rashness, broad mindedness, affection, and superstition. Underdeveloped, it can show coldness, austerity, cruelty, lack of imagination, hot temper, and vanity. This mount can tilt toward the mount of Saturn, potentially diminishing certain Saturnian traits such as sadness, melancholy, or seriousness. Conversely, if it leans towards the mount of Mercury, it enhances an appreciation for beauty and artistic sensibility. Mount of Mercury is located beneath the fourth finger or little finger, and when regular, it indicates intuition, mental activity, intelligence, sincerity, and shrewdness. When overdeveloped, it denotes greedy nature, egotism, stinginess, and cunning. If underdeveloped, it shows shy personality, indecisiveness, lethargy, laziness, and caprice. If this mount tilts towards the edge of the hand, it suggests a tendency towards selfishness. Conversely, if it leans towards the mount of Apollo, it signifies an appreciation for art and beauty, indicating a preference for Apollonian traits over cunningness. Even in ancient times, it was considered that character analysis by means of palmistry must be closely correlated with judicial astrology, so by reading or casting a natal chart. Also, before I forget, chiromancy was sometimes utilized not by witches, but by late medieval witch hunters who interpreted pigmentation spots as indicators of a pact with the devil. Our hands are the immediate servants or instruments of the brain. Your mind allows you to choose your preferences, and with your fingers, you can hit the subscribe and like buttons while sharing your thoughts on palmistry in the comment section below. I appreciate you doing all this, and I look forward to seeing you next week for another video about lines and unique markings on the palm. Bye!